Okay, making another video about the links between Taoism and Judeo-Christianity. So this is the yin-yang symbol. This is black is yin, white is yang. Black is receptive, sometimes called feminine. White is creative, assertive, sometimes called masculine. And you see, I just have abstractly drawn some of ching representations of yin-yang. They're not even real hexagrams in most cases. It's just to get the idea. There are 64 hexagrams. They're all composed of 6 lines, each of which is yin or yang. These aren't even really hexagrams, most of them, but the idea is you have the base symbol of the yin-yang, and then the I Ching elaborates on that with lots of symbols around it. So one of the things that this can represent from the Old Testament is the skull of Goliath. So what happens in the story of David and Goliath is there's a fight between a small guy and a big guy. David is a small guy, Goliath is a big guy. And what happens is David takes a sling and shoots a stone, and it hits Goliath in the forehead, and it punctures Goliath's skull right here. Creates a hole in the skull, and it goes into his brain. There's the stone. Okay, so this is Goliath's skull. It has a hole in it, and there's a stone in his brain. Okay, now when that happens, it bleeds. Okay, this is blood coming from Goliath's head. Another way to look at it is Goliath is a giant. He's much larger than David. So here's Goliath, the much larger than David. He's an adult. Okay, he represents an adult. David, as something smaller, represents a child. When you are a child, you are receptive. You are learning. You are a sponge. You don't know anything about anything. Curiosity is the base characteristic of children, and it is open, non-judgmental curiosity until they learn otherwise. And so it is pure receptivity. David is small and dark. The color black absorbs all light. It is the symbol for being receptive. The stone being white represents the change that happens in boys in particular, in patriarchal societies in particular. What happens is that receptive child, that learning child, that listening child, that open-eyed, open, sensitive child calcifies and becomes like a stone. A stone doesn't grow. A stone, sediment accumulates, and pressure causes stones to form. Heat can cause stones to form, like heat from childhood. Anyway, it calcifies into a non-growing stone that cannot hear or see, listen, understand anymore, because now it thinks it knows everything. So what has happened is that David the child becomes David the calcified adult, and that kills the adult, Goliath. Goliath is the big circle. David is the small black circle, and the stone is a small white circle. Now, if you think about, I mentioned that blood comes out. Okay, that blood is like it gives Goliath like hair. If you think about the image of blood coming down someone's face, or a hole in someone's head, and then blood coming down, it's like long hair, which evokes Samson. Samson had long hair, and he took 2 columns and he pushed them apart in the temple, and he brought the whole temple down. It came all crashing down, like all this here. These are corpses. There were people on the roof, a bunch of them that died when he did it. And this is the ruins of the temple that Samson brought down. He takes receptivity and creativity, and he pushes them apart. It's quote unquote adultery, in the sense of becoming a calcified adult. It's when God first creates light, he separates the light from the darkness. That's God's job, not ours. God's design is that humans are made in the image and likeness of God. Genesis 1:27, male and female. And so there's male and female in the sense of being receptive and creative. But Samson has his hair cut, so that cutting of his hair is a repudiation of the union between receptivity and creativity in all of us. Even though in terms of sexual organs, the penis is viewed as being pure creative, and the vagina is pure receptive, but everything else, ears, eyes, nose, mouth, everything else. If you kiss somebody and you let somebody's tongue in your mouth, you are being receptive. If you're a man, you can't live without being receptive. And so Samson's attempt to be all strong man brings the whole temple down and leaves it all in ruins, like the Tower of Babel, where things get scattered to the ends of the earth. Same kind of thing. So you have this blood coming down his head, just as Jesus with the crown of thorns. The crown of thorns represents the people on the roof of the temple when Samson brought it down. So the name Samson means son or child of light, child, light. Jesus said he's the light of the world. Jesus compares himself to the temple. He says, if you bring this temple down, I will raise it in 3 days. All of that is evocative of the Samson episode where he takes the two pillars and he separates light from the darkness. He pushes them apart. He judges. He uses his knowledge of good and evil to judge. Rules like boys don't cry, anything along those lines. Any double standard where gender rules are different, loss of sensitivity, loss of tenderness, loss of playfulness, loss of humility, loss of openness. All of those things are what are represented by the Samson incident, taking the whole temple down. It's why Jesus died. It's why it's represented in the David and Goliath story. Another place where it's represented is in Solomon's story, where he talks about splitting the baby. He wants to split a baby. He's going to do the same thing. He's going to separate them, and it's going to be either male or female, and it's going to either obey female rules or obey male rules. And that whole thing is patriarchal at its core because it's controlling. When you have rules like that where people have to be something like that, that's coming from the masculine side of this, the yang side of this, that whole thing. So in the story of Solomon, a mother says, no, don't split the baby like that, and she's the hero because she doesn't want to split the baby. She wants to keep it unified, keep it together, just like the image and likeness of God, male and female. Genesis 1:27, Genesis 5:2, when Jesus says, what God has joined together, let no man tear asunder, in reference to divorce. That is, on one level, the internal divorce of sensitivity from controlling creativity from receptivity that happens as we age and as we adopt rules that come from patriarchy, from a desire to control. So that's another place that the wisdom of Solomon is to keep this thing together. It is the image and likeness of God. It is creative and it is receptive. It is male and it is female. If you think about the story of Abraham and Isaac, Abraham is known as the father of nations for being willing to sacrifice his son, which is kind of an outrageous thing unless you think about it. So Abraham takes Isaac away from his mom and he's going to sacrifice him. So there's Isaac, the little child. Here's Abraham the father, again, like Goliath and David. Here's Abraham's the father, here's the child, and he's going to sacrifice that receptivity in Isaac. But a better angel intervenes, and instead he sacrifices a ram, which is has wool like this. So instead of sacrificing the receptivity in Isaac, he allows Isaac to remain a receptive child, playful, humble, open, sensitive, tender, curious, very curious, learning, changing, growing, not calcified like a stone. So the reason that Abraham becomes the father of all nations is he sacrifices the ram, this calcification, this aggression and anger and all this non-growth, inability to listen, all the kinds of things that happen. He sacrifices that instead of the receptive child that is Isaac. He is the father. He is like the sun is the father of the moon and the earth. That's Abraham. Here's the blood from the ram, from the sacrifice. He chooses to sacrifice that kind of again, calcification and hardening instead of the softness in Isaac, which is what makes Abraham the father of nations. So that's Abraham, Solomon, David, Samson, Jesus on the cross, the crown of thorns. Cain and Abel is another one. You have two twins, one of whom sacrifice is pleasing to the Lord and one of whom isn't. The father figure is judgmental and tells one of them that what they're doing isn't correct, and that causes the big problem, and then so one of them ends up getting killed. And so again, the one you want to kill is not the receptivity. You want to create this, you want to kill the desire to be God, the belief that you know everything, the belief that you want that you can control other people, play God in other people's lives, play God in your own life, treat the earth in certain ways, treat other people certain ways. All of those things, that is the enemy, and that is what we kill, not the receptive child in all of us.